Hello, everybody. I'm Jay Schwab here, speaking to you from sunny Arizona. I am posting this a little after 4 p.m., so not doing the nighttime thing. Everything's going all well here with the fam. Did some grocery shopping this morning, so that was an interesting thing. Much better than when I did it last week. It's a lot less of an ordeal. Of course, we're going to talk again about the Viking Age. Um, this week, it's about methodology and context and content and analysis and all that. And of course, there are two things to me that have changed the historiography, the methodology, how things were done when analyzing the Viking Age, and not just my angle on things, the economy, the rating and trading economy, but the Viking Age as a whole. One is archaeology. The technology that aids archaeology today is there's nothing like it. They can analyze where the best places are. No more do you have to do the constant test hole digging and things like that before you can come close to actually getting the permits for the archaeological dig, let alone the archaeological dig itself. And so um, there's ground penetrating radar, both from on the ground and satellite. You can all this stuff. GIS is of course a big part of it all, and it makes some of the analysis and what the findings have changed over time. And so the historiography has changed from the late 1800s, where they came up with all kinds of wild theories, to not talking about it at all during the 1900s. Then, of course, you had the discovery of L'Ensemble Meadow in Newfoundland, which is interesting in itself because brand new uh, uh, archaeological data on the site actually have it not be more of a permanent site. It was a working site. It was a site where they built and repaired ships, and that they now think that Vinland is further down the St. Lawrence, which I completely agree with. And again, I've talked about Vinland before. Um, uh, my idea on Vinland is let me put it this way. I like, and I think I may have said this before. Washington or the United States. How would you tell somebody where is the United States? Would you point on a map and point it right at Washington D.C.? Well, no, you wouldn't. You do a sweeping motion and talk about the whole United States. Well, it's the same thing with Vinland. Vinland isn't Les Meadow. Vinland isn't a spot on the St. Lawrence. Vinland is the sweeping motion. What I like to say is anything south of Markland, the three lands that in the Viking sagas, especially the Vinland sagas, which is the Greenlander saga and the saga of Eric the Red and his sons. And so you had the three lands. You had Hellu Land on top, which is basically Baffin Island, the other frozen lands up there. Markland, which is Labrador because of all the trees and the flat stones on the beaches. And Vinland is anything south of that. And so don't think Vinland is so much of a point on the map, but as this area. And this is something that's changed over the years. And how they came to this is further analysis, further archaeology. And these especially satellite data. In fact, this couple of sites on Baffin Island that was once Hellu Land um, are now considered to be more permanent sites rather than just the fishing sites. So everything has changed, and some of this of this has changed is because, and the other reason, not just archaeology and the technology that has made it easier, is the sagas are now considered primary source documents by most people, especially those who study the Viking Age. And you can get a lot of um, cultural ideas from the sagas. It's not just these lavish stories and these things that happened. There are also um, you can get uh, the cultural stories from these sagas. Anyway, some of the data, especially since about 2016, 2015 in some cases, but mostly 2016, especially in 2018 and 2019, there are a lot of academic sources, academic journals. And this first one is The Nature of the Feast um, in early medieval Northern Europe during the Viking Age. It's by Ingrid Mainland from World Archaeology, the issue, volume 50, issue number 5 from December of 2018. And they have completely reimagined the feast, the Viking feast, in those big long houses. Um, they were ceremonial and they were political too. Uh, don't think of the Viking Age so much as the Vikings as one society. There were all these little chiefdoms, little fiefdoms, little kingdoms, and so politically they'd want to, have um, alliances so these raiding and trading parties would be successful. You don't want to go with just one small uh, uh, tribe, basically. And so a re-examining of the feast from the Viking sagas has been a big methodological change. Changes the historiography completely. Um, Another one is about the religion. There's a insular regulatory ecclesiastical significance of the early Viking Age. This is an article from the Medieval Archaeology, the issue, or volume 62, issue 1 from May of 2018 by Ania Heen Pedersen. And this re-examines, this is another example of re-examining through religion what changes were made uh, in the historiography by just looking at the economic situation and how they evaluated that. And there's another one strung along about beads. This is by Joanne O'Sullivan, also from Medieval Archaeology, from November of 2015. So one of the early changes in the historiography. Volume 59, issue 1 is where that's from. And what they have decided, what they found out, is that these beads that they thought were a part of the whole females' interest in jewelry is actually they were men's. So they were able to find more archaeological sites where men were buried, warriors, and they had these beads. And it was odd because they didn't find any women. Well, it turns out these beads are essentially ranks, and so that's another change, and how they figured it out from not only just the archaeology and different practices and different technologies that helps the archaeology, but also from these sagas that are now primary source documents. The final one is Was It for Walrus? The Viking Age Settlement and Medieval Walrus Ivory Trade in Iceland, Greenland. And this this is interesting to me because it solves some exploration ideas that they didn't have anything to trade with the Inuit of Greenland. The Vikings didn't. And it turns out they did. So basically, the Vikings were hunting for walrus. They were getting their hide, making rope out of them, the tusks for combs, things like combs. And so they were actually trading with the Inuit when the methodology was that they didn't even consider that they were making, they call them scralings, and so it was always thought of prior to, over the last few years, that that the Vikings didn't have much to do with the Native Americans, but they actually did. So a lot of stuff has changed over the years. The historiography has changed, and that's a great thing about the Viking Age and the research that's being done, especially over the last few years. So thank you very much.